everyone and welcome to another Getting Stuff Painted, my bi-weekly give or take update on the various miniatures I've been painting for the games we cover here on the channel. Today for you we have a big old bunch, thanks in part to the two of the models being so large, of Marvel Crisis Protocol, a little chunk of the Batman miniature game, and then a fair few models for Fallout Wasteland Warfare. As per usual, done with contrast paint for better or worse, with a little bit of regular paint thrown in here and there. And yeah, we'll just get started going straight from left to right. Got some stories to tell this time, that's for sure, so buckle in, buckle up, whichever. So we've got to start with the model I've been waiting for to get added to Crisis Protocol. Incidentally, I'm trying to record this at a different angle, so hopefully the zoom shouldn't have an issue. I've worked out the part of the problem was the angle I was trying to record at very strangely, which is why it took so long to troubleshoot. I shouldn't say that before attempting or testing whether or not it's fixed. This is going to be the test. But either way, we have regular sized Iron Man, who I will forever call Small Iron Man because he's next to the big man himself. Just like Miss Marvel we showed off last time is Small Miss Marvel, even though it's technically regular sized because that's Big Miss Marvel. But anyway, this is Hulkbuster Iron Man, and then of course the Hulkbuster itself. Use the same colours for both, so we'll mostly talk about the Hulkbuster itself because, as I said, it's what I've been waiting for to get added to this game. Is that in focus? I think it might be. I mean, the big guy's going to have no issues, fingers crossed. So this is just the little Iron Man that, if all things going well, you would never see on the table because the Hulkbuster wouldn't die, but the colours I use between both are exactly the same, just with different effects because one is small and one is very, very large. Technically the largest model Crisis Protocol has by like a millimetre or two, even though he's smaller in Dormammu because he's doing a jump punch. The Hulkbuster is actually a larger model. So that's little Iron Man. I like that suit design a lot better than the base box, the core box Crisis Protocol Iron Man. But again, all things going well, you'd never see him because you don't want the Hulkbuster to die. Because look at it, it's amazing, it's huge. It's much, much better than the Night Models Marvel Universe Hulkbuster, which by comparison is like that big. I should have had it here to compare, but it's in a previous one in this series. Because I got it long after it was out of print. But anyway, for the little Iron Man, who I've knocked off screen quite a bit, and large Hulkbuster Iron Man, went over the whole thing more or less with the Blood Angels contrast, but in order to make it look less streaky afterwards, once it had dried, did a wash. First of all I did the silver parts, just Lead Belcher Silver, Nazrag Yellow for the golden parts on his helmet and his hands and his legs and what have you. Did a wash over them with non-oil in certain parts of the red as well, and then afterwards I just took normal regular Blood Angels red Citadel paint and kind of went round the larger sections to give them a bit more definition. Contrast paint stayed on the edges and in the recesses, but hopefully made it look a little bit more I don't know, it looks used to me, which it is, because I mean it's not going to last long looking pretty if you're fighting the Hulk. So I kind of liked I really enjoy how the metal here looks. That was semi by accident. Can I get in closer for a better look? It's a little hard to tell. That's the only thing with this new angle I'm at. I have to like adjust how I'm looking at the camera to tell whether or not it's in focus. I think it is. So I hope I did it justice because I love the Hulkbuster. I just like big mech suits in general, honestly. Oh yeah, for the flames on both of them, that is Aethermatic Blue while it's wet, Yandin Yellow, and then in the middle they meet and kind of turn into that weird green colour. Trying to match the official paint job as best I am able, and I'm happy enough with how this turned out. Again, on the table, I think it looks decent enough. And little Iron Man turned out okay. I did the same thing with him actually. I'm not sure if this will be zoom-inable. But his chest piece, I think like the raised sections you can tell that I've gone over it again with a normal paint. I kind of like that. It's basically what I've been testing that I talked about last time, so I'm not going to go over it again in too much, but testing using a contrast paint on the base but then also touching it up with a regular paint to give it a bit more definition. I think it looks better, and I kind of used that same strategy for those two. Whether or not it worked out, I don't know. But I'm happy with it. It looks awesome, and you'll be seeing probably way too much of them on the table. So I guess technically I should have started with these two first because these are the two leftovers who've already been in battle reports as well of the Convocation releases that came out before Miss Marvel and Hulkbuster. So we have Clea, who I will always accidentally call Cleo, but Clea was also, if she can get in focus, maybe not quite. She was also a little bit of an experiment mixing contrast paint with more regular paints and what have you, and she is struggling to get in focus. It's always the very small female characters. There we go. I think I'm not going to move my hand for a second while I talk, but this is the not Flesh Terror Red, what's it called? Volupus Pink, the pink contrast paint for her cape, for her magic, for her hands, and part of the flames she's standing on. But afterwards, I didn't like how Shiner's Purple looked on her breastplate because it's too dark. Shiner's Purple is not a great contrast paint. So I just used Gene Stealer Hide and then did a little bit of wash for lines of definition and shadow, and I think it looks a lot better and a lot closer to the official paint job as well. For lipstick on female characters, I try my best to use a very thin brush, do a little bit of red, and you just trace a line and hope that it looks good. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes it doesn't. I think it turned out okay on her. I think my Scarlet Witch has really good lipstick. The Medusa, maybe not so much, and definitely not, which character was it that had Tony Stark's beard, I think, at some point. I don't know, I remember doing someone's beard, maybe it's Ra's al Ghul, but it did not turn out good. But either way, cape could look better. There's a little bit of pulling there that isn't consistent, but hopefully, again, this is an experimentation with these new camera angles, and it also means I don't strain my back because I'm not leaning over the camera, I'm slightly behind the camera. But that in itself, as it turns out, has its own problems. There's no happy medium. Actually, that's not true, there might be. So then we have Sorcerer Supreme Doctor Strange, who will forever be known as a war criminal on my table, because he is very, very good and just happened to get a lot of good dice rolls. And as a result, was a big murderer. And took a death ray from space and wasn't injured. Actually, it was his beard. It makes him look like the baddie from Invincible, I think. I don't know his name, I've not seen it. But yeah, it was his beard I was thinking of. And hopefully that is largely in focus. So this is Basilicanum Grey for his suit with a wash over the top. Space Wolves Grey for the weird white parts. And the rest of him, in terms of like his cape and whatnot, is what I've done for the previous Doctor Strange as well. Blinders Red with a little bit of normal paint over the top. Yandin Yellow for the trim. I didn't do any over the top with that because the yellow contrast does not gel well with other yellow paints. Because yellow paint in general, we've been talking about this in my Discord, yellow paint in general is very hard to get done right. Hats off to anyone who has an Imperial Fists army. Did the exact same thing as I did for the scenery I talked about and hated last time. On a much smaller scale, I think it looks good. It adds to the effect. It's a very nice model, very impressive pose, and a war criminal on the table. Last but not least, not as excited with how tall Miss Marvel came out, especially compared to regular size Kamala. Mostly because I think my Talisar Blue contrast, it's on the way out, running out of in the pot. I have another pot somewhere, but I insist on trying to use it all, and I think what's left isn't like the ratio of whatever they have in it isn't as good as it was when it was opened, and unfortunately I think Kamala's paid that price for it by being very streaky on what would normally be fairly nice looking flat clothing. But either way, I talked about what colours I used for her. This is literally identical, just on a much larger scale. You probably won't see this much on the table anyway because she only turns into embiggened form as part of a turn unless you use certain tactics cards, so not too fussed. But it is a shame that the Talisar Blue just streaked a bit too much compared to normal, and again I don't have a particular like normal paint that matches this exact tone, so I'm able to like build. If I get one in the future, I could do exactly the same things I did for these lot and just make it look a little bit better on the areas that aren't edges or curves. And that as an extra step on top of contrast paint is the way to go if you want to advance while still relying on contrast paints, I think. Contrast pants. Because again, I don't know if it's even noticeable in the battle reports, but I feel like this style of base looks a lot better than the streak grey it was before. So not too much to cover from the Batman miniature game next. All of these have been in a battle report together already. In fact, I'm recording this on the day that it went live. We have Bud and Lou. I've forgotten which is which. Harley Quinn's hyenas, and then Signal Man, who I didn't know anything about until he had a model revealed. These are going to be the true test of this new angle. I can't tell whether or not that's in focus because it's too small, so I'm just going to have to hope for the best. I used Wildwood contrast with Black Templar for the hyena spots, just kept the base coat of Grey Seer for the Joker necktie. I don't know what those are called, frills around their necks. A little bit of black on... Actually no, sorry, I used Snakebite leather because I used Wildwood to make the muzzle look darker, since hyenas have dark muzzles. Warp Lightning Green for his Joker-esque hair on this guy, with the same pink I talked about for Clea? Oh no, I've forgotten now. For his tongue. I like this pose, it's fun. Although he was slightly off his base, so I had to fix it ever so slightly. Bud and Lou, they're fun enough. And then Signal Man, he did pretty well in his first showing. He is surprisingly effective for being a pretty cheap henchman. So for him, I used a lot of Iyanden yellow, Blood Angels red, and a little bit of Warp Lightning green for his belt, Black Templar for the streaks on his underwear that he's wearing on top of his pants. Lots of Lead Belcher silver with Agrax Earthshade over the whole thing. I still like the Batman miniatures looking a bit grimy, although the back of the cape is overly grimy. I should have left well enough alone. And again, I can't really build it back up because I can't find a decent yellow that matches that almost orange tint that the Iyanden yellow contrast produces for the shadow it makes. And even if I did, yellow paint just for whatever reason just always seems to turn into runny water, and it's just horrible. Like I have two different shades of regular Citadel yellow, both of them are garbage. I used them effectively like once and then they turned to water. But yeah, not much else to say about them. Oh sorry, yes, the inside of the bat signal is Aethermatic blue. That's the only other thing in terms of contrast paint. And the bat symbol there is covered in Black Templar on top of silver. And that is now 3 different sizes of bat signal that you could feature in the same game of Batman. If you took the Gordon that has the bat signal as part of his base rather than use it as scenery like we do here, bring Signal Man in as part of a Soldiers of Fortune crew, and bring Rebirth Bane as the leader, you'll have small, medium, large for the bat signal in the same game. So last but by no means least, we have a bunch of Fallout Wasteland Warfare to cover. I've nattered way too much already, so let's just kind of cover these quickly. The final 2 Radroach bases that have also been painted up to look like the irradiated Radroaches, done exactly the same as the one I've talked about prior, so I won't need to go over that again, but as a matter of note, these 2 have been painted, and that means the entirety of the Mole Rat and Radroach box is now done. And they're just like handy little critters to have as just like little enemies to have on the side, I think, although the radiated ones aren't pushovers, the normal ones are. So next we have 2 of the Raiders Scavers Psychos box. I couldn't find the Raiders starter box, so these are from that kind of like additional box that just adds some more alternative sculpts, I think, more so than anything else. Both of these are wearing, they're going to struggle a little bit, both of these are wearing leather jackets and whatnot. So they're all painted with Black Templar, Fireslayer flesh for his skin tone, and a little bit of Snakebite leather on the dirt, and also on his shotgun. And I used the exact same for this lady, with the exception that she's got bright red hair, because you know they're all like ne'er-do-wells and punks and whatnot. She's using that's a hunting rifle, right? Is that what she's using? That's what it looks like in the game. I forget, I'm replaying Fallout 4, but I've done the same thing I always do, where I get started and then I start building Sanctuary using the build a settlement mechanic, and then just forget that there's a game attached. But I'll get back to it sooner or later, I'm sure. A little bit of Lead Belcher silver as well, with Agrax Earthshade over everything, because the post-apocalypse is dirty. Now, last but not least, or by no means least, 2 more to add to the pile, Super Mutant Hounds. Now you'll notice one of them is very distinctly a different colour. One of these came out bad. Both of them have like red scars that I didn't do for the other ones. These are to set them apart as a different type of mutant hound. There's 2 types of hounds in the game, Super Mutant Hound and Super Mutant Hound Fiends, I think they're called. They have less HP, but they're much stronger and deadlier in close combat. So to tell them apart, I decided to do a Devil Joe type, like just put a little bit of Blood Angel's contrast in while it's damp, to make it look like they've got like scar tissue that pulses up when they get aggressive, and this one's got 1 eye as well. And I wanted to paint these both identically in that fashion, but as you can tell there's a very clear colour difference that was not on purpose. Despite washing this twice, once in soapy warm water, it was just one of those miniatures that had that problem. In fact, I can still see bits where the contrast didn't pull at all for whatever reason, and it just would not pull and dry. So I had to do copious amounts of layers, and that's why, like, these are both done with the same flesh tone contrast, but this one's had like 3 layers, and there's still parts where it just would not do it. And that's what put me off continuing with Fallout Wasteland Warfare in the first place, where I had a series of like 3 or 4 minis where this problem existed, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't use contrast paint. And although one of them was from the starter box, this one, because it's green, in fact, does it say dates on it? 2017, and they're both from 2017. The fact that this one was green base and this one was clear isn't the problem. It's something to do with a certain run of miniatures they made during the 2017-2018 releases, I think, that were just treated in something different that contrast just can't work with, no matter how much you wash the resin. And it's the first one I've had since coming back to Wasteland Warfare where it felt like you just couldn't do it. And as a result, I mean, it kind of looks okay. The scar tissue looks a bit more visible, maybe a bit too much, honestly, and it's still usable, but I wanted it to be identical, and obviously it hasn't turned out like that. So the problem still exists, but it might just be from certain miniatures from an earlier time, like these. When are these from? Yeah, these are the tail end of 2018, I think, was the Raider releases, and some of the other things I've shown off on the painting table are like from 2019, 2020. I haven't had much of an issue with them. Occasionally a little bit, but definitely not to the degree that Super Mutant gave me. That's the most frustrating one I've had since returning back, and I did clean it. I tried my best to clean it, tried my best to make sure it was base coated. I don't know. But anyway, that is going to do it for another Getting Stuff Painted. A fairly large amount of stuff done in a couple of weeks. I hope the new style is better. My back is certainly glad that I was able to sit down and film this as opposed to leaning over this camera constantly. But, oh, it's a siren goes past. They're coming to arrest me for sitting down. But hopefully the focus was a little bit better. Unfortunately, I can't tell till I watch this in posts. So if there was a lot of not in focus when I thought it was in focus, I'll have to go back to the other style. But it was an experiment. Hopefully this inspires you to get, oh, they really are just sirens going. I don't know if it's audible or not, but there's a lot of sirens. Hopefully this inspires you to get your miniatures painted, whether you feel like you're a good painter or not. Doesn't matter, it's just an enjoyable thing to do, and it makes the games look nicer, regardless. You could have an abomination like this thing, and still it would look better than if it was just plain sitting there. So hopefully that will encourage you, and if you want to show me anything you've been painting, whether it's from a miniature game I play or not, show me on Twitter, @GamerEnd. I link it in the description box of every video, I think. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks. There's going to be more... what is there going to be more of? More Fallout Wasteland Warfare, because I'm working through that box of Raiders and whatnot. I think I'm done with Crisis Protocol for now, because the new releases are delayed due to the supply issues. More Batman stuff. In fact, you might see an unboxing... Well, you may have seen the unboxing before this goes live, actually, depending on when it arrives, of the Halloween releases they did, which look awesome. Hopefully, end up like that. And... I'm not sure what else. I'm not sure. There is some more Star Wars Legion, probably, and I'm tempted to start painting something else, but I don't want to get hopes up by mentioning it specifically by name. So let's just call that there. Thank you very much for watching. I sincerely hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. Ta-ta for now.